I'll turn it over to the city manager.
And I'll turn it over to the finance director. I think the ink's still wet on some of it, so.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry.
Okay.
Which one you want to do first?
We're going to be doing the library first. Today, we're going to go over the library, the animal control, and the police department. We have a budget workshop scheduled on August the 6th, and for the record, I would like to schedule another one for the next commission meeting, August the 20th.
Okay. All right. Okay, that sounds
That's
good.
okay.
And at 6 o'clock, just after the regular meetings.
Regular
Okay.
meeting.
All right, perfect.
And the hope is by then everything, so that when September rolls around, we can just,
We're ready.
if you want to talk about it some more, we can do that. And or if we want to wait till the hearings, we can do that.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Okay, that sounds good. So we're right now, you're suggesting August the 6th and August the 20th, additional workshops after the regular commission meetings.
Right, we've got a workshop scheduled for August the 6th. I'm requesting an additional one on August the 20th. That's our next commission meeting, August 20th, correct? Yes.
Okay,
I didn't want to forget that today, so that's why I thought I would bring it up
okay,
at the very beginning.
okay. Thank you, Sherry.
Okay. Okay, so if you've got a couple of packets in front of you, and right now, if you want to open up the one that is the library,
Okay,
we're going to go over the Department 6060, which is the library department, and it's in the general fund. And just a few moments ago, I handed out a one-page document because I thought you would like to see the budgeted revenues within our general fund that support the library. So overall, these revenues support 30% of the library. And the biggest portion of that is Hendry County support. The county supports, by the per capita contribution, $74,208 this year, which is about 23% of our general fund library budget that we're going to be going over tonight, or this afternoon. So the first sheet is the worksheet summary. And really and truly, there's nothing of significance in the personnel because, as you all know, we're still estimating for our insurance, our health insurance and our workers' comp. It's still out there, and we are calculating a 20% and 15% for those, and it's built into our budget. So if you see that total personnel, really nothing has happened other than that is built into that. And it might reflect 6% simply because someone may have chosen something different in the healthcare portion last year. It might be different this year, but there's nothing really to report there.
okay,
In the operating, likewise, we don't really have anything. Our repair and maintenance, let's see. You'll see that it went up significantly, 158%. Well, what we have built into that is I like to call it like an extra maintenance project, a big one. We're hoping to be able to paint the exterior of the library this year. So there's $12,000 built into this budget for painting the exterior.
okay,
And then also, there's a contingency built in, that's $3,000. We've done that over the last several years. This $3,000 is predicated upon contributions. In other words, it's where the library gets a lot of citizens that come in, and they like to maybe either buy books, and they're specific with their contributions. And this was a way for the library to be able to follow through with someone's wishes for whatever they'd like to do, or maybe they want to have a program. So this contingency line, if they bring in $500 worth of contributions, then this is a budget transfer to wherever that $500 needs to go. But we have built this into the budget for the last few years, and it seems to work. And it's an easy way to track and keep up with that.
okay.
And it doesn't, hurt the normal the budget that the library has going on. But other than that, I don't know if you have any questions or if Natasha wants to say anything about the general fund portion.
I got a question. Madam Mayor,
Sure, absolutely.
do we know when the library was last painted?
It's a good question. I specifically don't know, and we should have asked Sean, but last year we did what we call the city complex here, where we painted City Hall and utilities. This is a continuation of what the facility maintenance department wants to do with getting the buildings on a painting schedule.
Because of the new
So-
color scheme.
So we want to do the youth center, the pool, and the library this year. We've already talked about the youth center, and we have it built into one of those budgets, and the pool will be the same.
Okay.
But we can get that information for you if you'd like.
I would appreciate it very much.
Okay? Yes, sir.
Let me text Sean. Okay. Natasha, I know that we're just talking about right now the general fund of the library. I know that there's grants as well, but I also know that you've been working on just a lot of different programs. So I just wanted you to bring us up to date on what of the things that have been going on at the library.
Sure. It's been a very eventful summer. We had Excel classes. We finished up a 5-week rotation of beginners Excel was offered on Mondays from 5:30 to 6:30 for the community members. We had Library Rocks program, which was the summer statewide program that finished up last week. We had upward of 70 children attend the end of summer bash that we held.
70 children?
Yes, sir.
Really? From what age to what age?
It was all ages. And we handed book bags out. For those-
6 to 16? I mean,
It was actually 5. It would be 5 to 18. Because
5
we
to
had
18.
some workers that worked with the Y. And since they helped and participated throughout the summer, we had 60 book bags donated from U.S. Sugar. With, the book bags and the supplies. So they were able to grab one of those as well. So we want to say thank you to U.S. Sugar for supporting the library there.
Good news.
The Friends of the Library, we had pizza, we had a get together, and it was just, a great time for everybody to be there. We had family summer days on Wednesday, was a big hit this summer. We would have upwards of 60 participants that would come. We would have family coloring and family movie day. And going forward, we're gearing up this year to offer some tutoring services. We have some funds available that we would like to offer that to the community. So we're looking to see what we can offer. Intermediate Excel classes will start this coming Monday for the community as well. So this is getting back into the routine of getting the kids in school this month, and then we're starting up again in September with our usual tutoring and after-school programs.
Okay. And I know there was some art classes I thought I had heard you mention before. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you. I forgot about that. Confident creator Heather Caldwell has came to the library 3 times, and she's coming back again Saturday. I want to say it's the 18th of August, and she holds 2 classes for children and then for adults. The children will be from 9 to 10:30, and adults it will run for 2 hours from 10:30 to 12:30. So she's an abstract artist. We've had really well turnout. The community seems to like that, and actually we don't have any seats left when we offer the
That's
classes.
great.
So we're getting art out into the community, another form of learning too. So we're excited to go forward.
That sounds great. Any questions at all from any of the commissioners?
No, I just like to say something general and brief. That, we sit here and we want to, we're always concerned how many kids we have signed up for Little League and Cougars and soccer. And probably one of the most important buildings in our city you operate is that library. I go through there 100 times a day because I go from the house to the store. And I always see a lot of traffic there, kids, adults. So I think we maybe not, but I do underestimate the value of that library to our
It's
city.
important.
That's the point I want to make, and I want to congratulate you with all the numbers and all the things that you're doing and being successful. So, I just give you kudos, and I hope you continue doing a good job for us.
Thank
and staying with us for a long time.
Oh, most definitely.
Because we've had a few turnovers since I've been here, so hope you're with us for a while.
At the library, and then we're getting ready to go into the state library grant. Natasha just gave us an overview of activities having to do with just overall at the library, whether it's daytime or evening. And I know, I don't go there by there as much as Commissioner Rodriguez, but I can tell you that on Saturdays when I can make it there, there's always a lot of people, whether they're on the computers or whether they're just sitting there checking out books or reading magazines, or families sitting around a table together reading. I think it's fabulous. So, no, it's one of my favorite places in town. So is there any other comments or questions about the activities? Okay. All right. So I think then we have to talk about state library grant program.
Yes.
Sean said the library was painted when Ivor was here.
With who?
It's when Ivor was here.
Well,
That's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been like 2009.
So
Really?
About 10 years, 10 or 11 years. Yeah. Okay.
So you guys are you're happy with that answer, Mr. Rowland? Commissioner Rowland?
I'm happy with the answer, not happy with the expenditure.
Okay. I gotcha. We'll
Okay.
put it on the list, then hopefully by the next time we meet, we'll have the list that we talk about that has
All the requests.
I call it the extras, the
Right.
not routine. Okay, so everybody has the state library grant packet in front of you? Okay. Again, with the library, there's nothing really to report different about the expenditures this year, other than you'll notice this is the State Library Cooperative that we administer for Hendry County, and it's made up of 3 libraries. It's Clewiston, LaBelle, and Harlem, and they work together, and we administer these. And so this budget has included grant expenses for all 3 libraries. So you'll see it, last year, our budget was $235,759. This year, we're anticipating it to be around $210,898. And what that is, it's made up of the library grant, which is, the rule of thumb is to always budget what you received last year. And we received a little over $179,000 this year. And we're anticipating to have about $30,800 as a carryover. And that would be for all, again, as I say, for all 3 libraries. And as you're looking at this, the only thing different that Natasha has done, or moved around, so to speak, is she's increased the promotional activities. When we hear her talking about all the programs that the library's got going on now, you'll see where the promotional activities within the library grant has been increased for $3,000, and that's basically to help with these classes and events that the library has been planning. So other than that, we really don't see any change. There hasn't been any change. I don't know if you have anything to say.
Mayor,
Sure.
if I may, I can remember, and I'll need some help with this, that grant used to be over $300,000 a year, right, or no? I'm going back a few years back. So we're being underfunded. Have we seen a forward motion, or has it been going less, or where's those grants been? Do you have a history on that right off?
Well, I hate to say off the top of my head, Commissioner Rodriguez, but I don't recall it being that much.
That high?
In fact, every year, and Natasha can speak about this better than I can, but for the last few years, there's been some concern that these funds would be cut, because these funds are never guaranteed. We don't get these funds until March or April of every year. We have to start applying for them. We'll have deadlines. October the 1st, we'll have a deadline. We work together on the grant. I do a portion of it. Natasha does a portion of it. We've got some work that's due by October 1st. Then again, in December, I think it's December the 1st, somewhere around there, there's the final grant work that we do. And it's never a given. And every year it's getting to the point because, as you know, we're not the only entity that's trying to make budget cuts. And the library, the state library, they're always, worried about those budget cuts really affecting them. And I know Natasha was telling me that they mentioned that. So we're thankful when we get them, but it's not a guarantee.
And you say they're being cut, or they're being
We don't know.
increased?
There's always talk of that because the state, it's within the state budget, so we never know. They're not 100% guaranteed. We just never know how much we're going to get. And rule of thumb, that's what the state library tells us. Plan on what you received last year. But your grant is built upon, it's calculated, there's a formula that they do with that, and it's calculated based upon the expenses that you have. So the bigger your budget, say, so to speak, the more library grant, the bigger your library grant's going to be.
Mayor, I have a question. Now, maybe I need some help because I think you were around at the time. When we had that presentation from that lady that came from the region, what was that, where we were going to be regionalized and get funding or getting, do you remember that when we had that? It's been a few years ago when we had that presentation
I
from
think
that
that's
region.
when the state was going into some really tough times, and I think that they were looking at trying to put everybody together as
Well,
much
they
as
wanna
possible.
increase
And then
the
we were
co-op.
also looking at the county going, all the libraries being under one department, basically, instead of 3 separate libraries. But I
know
believe that
that
there was
we
not a
entertained that,
consensus
but-
that was reached on that, and, because they were thinking about the budget cuts. And then we were also looking at, that's what I remember off the top of my head.
I can't
Yeah.
remember.
So, do you have anything else to add? I know it's been many, many years ago. So, but I think the bottom line was is that they didn't want to be one entity, that each community felt that they could take care of the running of the library on their own, because most of the budget was coming from the state. Okay. Is there anything else on that?
I don't have any, unless you have any more questions.
Any more
or
questions
maybe-
for our library director before we finish with the library budget? Okay.
I
All
do
right.
want to add one more program we have started back up. The state did approve a $750,000 grant, and it was signed by the Department of Education for the Career Online High School to resume. So we will be offering the Career Online High School through the library. We'll be awarded a certain amount of scholarships to get individuals to come in and get their high school diploma. It's an online service. They would come in and speak with Melva there at the library, so that's been very successful for us. We've had a really good turnout in graduations in the past. We couldn't have it last year because the grant was not funded, but it was signed this year, so we're going to jump that off and launch it on September 16th, I believe, is the
Okay.
start date for that. So.
Now, do we know how much money we're going to receive?
No, sir. When I spoke with the state librarian, with so many cooperatives and libraries interested in the program, she's going to hope to start each library out with 15 scholarships, but depending if certain libraries don't need that many, if we're in need, they will definitely, come to us. So it's more of a as-need basis, but everybody will start equally.
And if I remember, I'm thinking there's at least 9 or 10 students at the last graduating class, and then before that, I know there's been quite a few of them, but I know that it's a dozen, probably about the number that might have started. But I know for sure that the last class had at least 9 students, if not more.
And we just held a graduation, I believe it was in October, shortly after I had started, that they had finished up and got their diploma. So we've had a lot of calls and a lot of interest in that again. So we're pleased
Good.
that that is back in our community and offered.
And the costs are covered by by the grant.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
And just to clarify, the funding doesn't run through us. We don't administer that. It's done on a state level, and they call them scholarships.
Okay.
Correct? They give.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you. Keep us posted on that. All right. Okay. All right. So we've finished with the budget for the library. Okay. And I know that I saw Al leave the room. Is there? Not yet. Okay. He's hoping for some exciting family news. So, All right, so next we'll turn it over to Sherry again, that we'll have the animal control budget and the police department budget. Again, this is a workshop, there's no decisions that are being made tonight, but certainly if anybody from the public is here and would like to speak on any of the matters having to do with the budget, they're more than welcome to come forward and state their name for the record.
I'm going to go over the animal control first.
Okay?
Everybody
Go
have their animal control packet?
Yep. Oh, dilated? Okay, so, yes, I think we're all,
when I get home.
okay.
Are you dilated?
Yeah.
Okay, Sherry?
Okay, our budget this year, we're asking for $175,916. And as you know, the county supports 50% of our animal control budget. We do animal control services for the eastern part of Hendry County as well as our city. And that's why they support us with the 50%. Now, if you will look at the personnel, I'll let the chief talk about this, but you'll see a change. He is requesting to implement an additional grade for our animal control officers. Right now, we just have one position that's an animal control officer, and it's a starting pay. And when someone starts with animal control, they are required to be certified. So they have to get a certain amount of education if they're going to continue to be an animal control officer for us. So taking that into consideration, the chief feels that once someone's certified, we did this a couple of years ago with our police dispatchers, they would move to a different grade and their pay would be increased. So the starting pay for an officer without the certifications is $11.41. Then once they get these certifications, they go into the different grade. They go from a grade 8 to a grade 10, and their hourly pay increases to $12.60.
Okay.
And also included in the personnel, he's requesting for a part-time kennel tech that would work approximately 1,508 hours a year at $10 an hour. So basically has a cost of $16,500.
So is that kennel tech going to be around on the weekend when the animal control officers aren't there? Or are you going to split that for time during the weekend?
Well,
How's that going to?
once we get both positions staffed, there's going to be some scheduling changes that'll facilitate somebody being there 7 days a week, so that we're not a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 operation. We want to change that schedule up where it's a little more accommodating to the public and where it fits our 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week operational schedule. And then the kennel tech being a part-time position, what we were hoping is that now when the animal control officers come in, so much of their time is consumed inside the actual facility through cleaning and feeding and taking care of the facility. So it really, they're not out in the field doing those duties that they also have, and so inherently, it suffers a little bit, and they don't spend as much time as they should in the field. So if we could have a kennel tech in there that was able to take care of those, those duties inside the animal control facility, it would free up those officers to be out in the communities and maybe address some of the complaints that we receive a little more effectively, if you will, and where they could be a little more visible even, and maybe even proactively address some of the issues that we here in the city have, as well as those unincorporated areas of the county that we're also responsible for providing services for.
So what would the hourly rate for the kennel tech be?
It'd be $10 an hour, the part-time rate, yes, ma'am.
And I believe the position grade, he may want to expand upon that. We've had a lot of changeover with our animal control officers this year, and I think what the chief is trying to accomplish is hopefully retaining someone, because we do invest a lot when we have to send them off for their certifications.
Right.
And we did, and I meant to include, we did call around and get the salaries.
So just
what
salary
the hourly
survey.
rates were for animal control, and what we're trying to do is pretty much in line. There are Of course, on the coast, they're gonna be way higher. Those were just, we couldn't even compete with that.
Right.
And so, but we were kind of on the low side, but we're not totally off base with the 1260.
Okay.
We felt like, but it's just, we were hoping to retain, correct? So you don't
Right.
keep having
And
this changeover.
I'm hoping that we can use that as a tool to yes, retain those people that, like Sherry said, that
incentivize.
we make an investment in. We send them to school, we train them.
We don't make them sign a contract like we do with the police department or anybody else.
We absolutely can, yes, sir.
I think it's only fair. Anybody does it. The hospital does it. Everybody does
Absolutely, yes, I agree with you.
You're
think
talking
the-
about
I think
getting
the
the
city-
certification through this.
it. Yeah, if the city
Right.
pays
Right.
for it, we
Right.
get a
Yeah.
1 year, 2 year. I don't know what it's worth.
A commitment
You know,
from that
depending on
employee,
what
right.
it's worth, on what you get your
Right.
commitment for.
I think the city of LaBelle has 3 full-time people
Yes, sir, they do.
that work in their animal control department, and they've got one that's been there for 15 years,
Yes,
or
sir.
16 years or something. So
They have like a 20-year employee and like a 13-year.
yeah,
How
that's
do we
right, 2 of
So
them.
it's very
Correct.
hard to compare
Constant changeover.
How do
the
we
salaries.
compare to their pay? We're comparable.
Low, I think.
We're
Well,
low compared to
you
LaBelle.
have to consider how long the people have been there. I want to
True.
say it was,
On this, because they have the step.
and I do have that information.
But
Yeah,
our
the difference
starting
could-
salary is below
The
what
difference
LaBelle's
could be
at.
from just tenure.
When you look at the surrounding areas, like Sherry said, I mean, obviously, we're not trying to compare what we pay an employee here to what, a larger jurisdiction would pay. I mean, again, we can't compete salary-wise, but when it comes to job market-wise, when we're trying to compete and trying to attract qualified applicants here and trying to retain those applicants, well, those are the people we're competing with. Those are the organizations we're competing with. We'll never be commensurate with what they pay, and we understand that, but what can we do to maybe hopefully retain that individual and protect that investment that we've made in that person, because that's important. And I think those costs, once you start going through people continuously, I mean, they mount.
Right.
And they quickly add up through uniforms, through training, through the man hours that we have to spend, training that new staff member, that new employee, if you will. So, those costs add up quite quickly. And then again, I think there's a cost to the community in that, you're constantly seeing a different face. You're constantly dealing with somebody that you're unfamiliar with. So, being able to build that community rapport that we need to build. And, I think that suffers as a result of that also. So what can we do to hold on to those employees, make that initial investment in them, give them the tools they need to go out and do the job that we're asking them to do, and then retain them, where they don't just get that certification and move on to something more lucrative.
Right.
And you want to start them out at 1260 once they get their certification.
Correct. Yes, we'll
Where would
hire
it
them in as an uncertified
If
animal
they started
control.
LaBelle, if they started a new person,
We tried to find that out,
don't
but
have-
they did not have a starting salary to give to us. They said they,
yeah, I know they've been there for.
and I
20
do
years
have a
or 50.
list of, and I apologize, but I do have a list that we did call around to several of the communities and ask for that. But LaBelle, we do have the pay for the individuals. It's just that they were unable to give us a starting pay,
Because they've been there so long.
and they don't really have. Yeah, I guess it's not just a concern because they haven't had to worry about it for a while, obviously.
Okay, so the recommendation is to come up with implementation of an additional grade for a certified animal control officer as well as a part-time kennel tech.
Yes, and
Okay.
we can put that on, it'll be on the list too as well.
Okay.
That I'm gonna
Chief,
make for you.
what is the our responsibility? Where do we go? Where's our service area?
For the entire eastern side of the county, from Ladika all the way to the Palm Beach County line, all the way south, everything in Hendry County on this side of the county.
And I know you have a pulse on this. How busy? I mean, how busy is it? Are they?
They respond to a lot of calls for service, yes, sir. We receive a significant amount. I won't say, I don't want to put an actual number on it, but I know that we spend a lot of time, because I just don't have it off the top of my head, and I apologize, but we spend a lot of time responding to calls from the public, yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, Kathy, it's not uncommon for us to make 2 trips to Montura a day, is it?
2, 3, 4.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, that's a,
So where's the majority of our calls? Are they out of the city?
I have the capability of extrapolating that information. I don't have it right here before me, but yes, we have the capabilities to actually pull that up and see exactly how much time our vehicles, which are our officers, spend inside the incorporated city limits versus how much time they spend in the unincorporated areas of the county that we're responsible for.
But
I
we-
can have that and pull it and get you that information.
Okay.
And again, I apologize, I don't have it right here in front of me.
Well, if you could get us the salary survey and then also his information,
I'll be
on how
happy.
much the time, okay?
The city of LaBelle, the employee that's been there 13 and a half years, they're at 1340. And they have what they call a supervisor that's been there 16 years. They're at 2065. Highlands County, a beginning animal control officer, is $11.80. In DeSoto, it's $14.08. Glades County, $11.86. Lee County, $14.05. Okeechobee, $14.42. But I've got
And
this,
we don't
and we'll
know-
make a copy for you.
We don't know whether that's just the city of Okeechobee or the outlying areas.
I don't.
I mean-
Whether they have
back.
No, we don't know.
But
But we do know that most of these that I read to you, like Okeechobee County, they take care of Okeechobee County, so that would be the city of Okeechobee
well,
as
that's
well. Highlands County,
it's probably the county that's doing the whole thing.
Highlands County Sheriff's Office takes care of their animal control as well. So I'm
So
more
that
than
again-
certain that it's Lake Placid as well.
It's encompassing.
It's a
Yes.
county, Okay.
You know, we're running hours out of the city and getting reimbursed 50%,
Yes, sir.
you know, from the county. Remember this, Chief, it's very important that we have the numbers. You know, it really makes it easier for us to sit up here and questions not be going through our minds.
And the
I
calls,
think-
is that what you mean?
I mean, the number of calls that we do to Montura, that we do to, you know, Ladika, that we do to Harlem, and it,
and you must have a pretty good feel, because that's why you're asking for an additional person.
We spend a remarkable amount of time, and I think it's just because the city's so small compared to the amount of unincorporated area that we're responsible for. So
Right.
there is a considerable amount of our time spent outside the city of Clewiston. I can't put a number on it to say that it's 60% or that it's 40% or that it's, I don't know that number right off the top of my head, but I can tell you, yes, that, you know, just again, because of the size of the area outside of the city that we were responsible for versus the size of the city, there is a significant amount of time that we spend outside of the city, yes, sir.
And so,
Right.
Chief,
Yes.
one couple more things. And I think when it comes to hourly, we're at a war because, and not putting any industry down, but your fast food restaurants, they're paying $10, $11 an hour. So it's a war that I don't know how we can win, but obviously we got to make it worthwhile for these people. But
Can I just add something to that, though? Because when you look at the fast food restaurants, the benefits, I mean, there might be some of those employees that receive benefits or retirement, but do the majority of them receive benefits and retirement?
probably not.
Okay.
No.
So-
Some
They
of them,
don't.
the ones that are
Right.
there maybe
So-
over a year, they
right.
do.
So I think, you
No.
know, that's a good point, but I think that's probably why somebody will come work, you know, for that 1141 to 1260, or even for part-time at $10.
Well, but with the
But for the-
turnover that we're having, it seems like that's not keeping
Right, and
them
that's
here
why he's asking
because-
for an increase
so
in salary,
We got to
yeah.
figure. That's what I'm saying. We got to figure it out. Restaurants have a high turnover. We have a high turnover. There's no doubt. And also, just the last thing I'll say on this, that as Commissioner Rowland says, numbers are important for me to justify any increases or any additional salaries or employees. But now yourself, and I guess you're the one that has the finger on the department, and the captain, you know, both of you probably need to peek your head in there once in a while to see what's going on there and make sure that, you know, what we're getting, you know, what are we doing, you know? So maybe the next time we come, we can get a better report. As you know, I know that you're new on the job, and
We spend quite a bit of time out there.
Yeah,
We do, and I get reports from them that show the actual numbers of animals that we intake, what goes out. We have that report that they give
the
to
thing
us.
is that we don't have it here tonight.
No,
so,
and I don't
you know,
have it right
You know,
here in front of us, so.
that's the bottom line. That you know we don't have the information tonight, and that's what helps me also. You know, whenever I'm gonna.
And you're going to get that to us? on
Yeah,
the-
we got
on the
time.
actual
We got
time.
till the
Yeah.
end of the the
tomorrow.
report, the
Chief.
budget.
When you're short-handed, there are some calls that absolutely have to be addressed.
Correct.
How does that happen? Are you having to pull from elsewhere to?
Luckily, we have some really great police officers that are willing to go out and kind of fill in and help us out with that function, and that are capable of doing it. So we've been able to fill those voids through the police department staff.
Okay.
One
And
more
our
question,
volunteers, as far as what we do in the kennel and helping us transport animals back and forth from the various rescues and what have you. Again, and I think we've already had this discussion, you know, they've been invaluable to our operations out there.
And I know one of the volunteers is here, Kathy Irie, and I know Dana Westbury also is a great volunteer. And so we'd just like to thank y'all publicly for all the help that y'all give to the city.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I know that we recognized y'all at the chamber dinner in December, but it goes without saying, as the chief just said, what you provide the city is invaluable. So thank you once again.
One more question,
Yes, sir.
please. Who picks up dead animals?
That's it. That's we can do it for the city. We're city employees. If you tell us to go pick up dead animals, we're going to go pick up dead animals.
No?
It's not.
Tell me who picks up dead animals.
Well, it's not written anywhere who does it.
Okay.
And I just went through the interlocal agreement with the county, nor is it written in that interlocal anywhere. It's not really written anywhere that somebody picks up dead animals, so there's no policy on it.
Okay. Then we need a policy.
Yeah, we don't have a problem doing it. Again, if you tell us to pick up dead animals, we're going to do it.
We need a policy because once somebody calls in about a dead animal, it needs to be picked up. It needs to be picked up before morning. The next morning, we're kids.
No,
We're not going to the bus stop looking at dead animals and the stuff be spread.
and if you call us and you ask us and let us know, we'll come pick it up.
Right. And I know that on several occasions when I've gone down to WCO or something, I've called y'all to let y'all know because it could have it looked like it just happened.
Yeah.
So people do need to call in and let them know that there are dead animals.
Yeah, and absolutely. If you call us and say, hey, there's a dead animal here, we're going to come get it, no doubt. We just understand that falls underneath our purview, and that's our responsibility.
Well, in 6 years I've served on the commission now, I've had people ask me, I in turn have asked who picks up dead animals. Well, we do.
And we do.
I'm going before you. And there's nothing in writing.
Right.
I would appreciate it very much if we have something in writing. So we know as the board who to call, and we can give that information to the person that calls us.
I mean, I would say the animal control would be the first one on the list for me.
Well,
Or usually I call
there's
just the police
nothing in
department.
writing,
Yeah,
Julio.
but no,
That's
what I'm
what
saying,
I'm
no, I
saying.
agree with you, but I mean, animal control before a police officer, or
I
that would
would-
be second, and then
I would agree with
me and
you.
you maybe fourth, and kick a dead squirrel.
Well,
or-
the
I agree
problem
with-
was one of the calls.
I agree with what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm just saying, Commissioner, who would you rather see first on that list? Makes sense that animal control would be one, right?
Okay, the first person on the
Yeah,
list.
that's why I say, who would you?
Well, there should be one person called, the police station.
Yeah,
That's what
And the police station dispatches
whoever.
animal control.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, after that, and there's not a person on duty, we don't call a person in to do that.
I understand.
We do it as the police officers. We, they have something in their trunk to put that in, just so it's not there the next morning.
Right. But again, it's all based upon somebody calling. I mean, the police department is not going to know that there's a dead animal unless they get a call. So,
I
and I don't know how it
understand
works
that.
in the county.
One of the calls that we received was a dead animal that belonged to the homeowner that was in their yard. They wanted us to come get it, which we did, but that's a little bit different situation.
That is different.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
happened twice in the last year, I believe.
Okay.
Year and a half,
So
something
we'll
like
look
that.
at it, and you guys will come back with some.
Mhm.
I have a. If you'd like to come forward for the questions or comments, please.
Okay, I'm supposed to state my name. Kathy Irie. I want to ditto what Chief has said. The need is great to have a third person there. We just did the numbers today, Don, the other animal control officer, and it's 50-50. There were 50% of the dogs were picked up from county. We received from the county where we picked up, and 50% was from the city. Cats, it's about the same too, because we have a huge cat problem here in this community. So with regards to that, it's 50-50. As of July, 30 minutes ago, it's 50-50%. And with regards, when you were talking about McDonald's, I used to work at McDonald's, and I've been involved in animal control, and there's a world of difference in the amount of workload that's expected of the animal control officers, and, you know, in their training manuals and everything else. So they certainly deserve. I mean, after seeing so many of them go through these last 5 years, I see how overwhelming it is for anybody new coming in because of the amount of the law you have to know. You have to work with the community, and many times, like the youth, don't know how to work with the community. So there's just a tremendous amount of knowledge that's not even in the training that they go through that they have to learn. So the need's huge. The workload's huge.
Kathy, I brought up the part-time. I mean, the difference was because at the city, you know, if they're full-time, they're going to receive benefits.
No,
and
yeah, I
retirement,
realize that. Yes,
which is a plus, you know.
but when they're younger, they don't always
don't
look
know-
at that.
right.
I think one of the biggest things is the risk too. There's a lot of risk when
Absolutely.
There's a huge amount of risk. In fact, you know, anything can happen. There have been a couple of times where I've been caught in a situation in the back with an animal, and fortunately, there was somebody there to help me. And it wasn't anything like he was being aggressive, but when he jumped out of the kennel, I grabbed onto his leash, and he caught me just by the finger, and he started twirling because he started panicking, and my finger wasn't twirling with him. So there is a tremendous amount of risk involved in this career. So, and it is a career. It's not just a job.
Sure.
Sure.
So, you know, and it's just not a job. So I wanted to, you know, address the 50, you know, it is a 50%. This month was, let's put it that way. So I think that was it though.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yes, sir.
Kathy just mentioned the word community, but it's more than that. It's neighborhoods. I've known Doug Morgan for 10 years and his partner. They both, first of all, love animals, but they get to know the neighborhoods, and they get to know what animal, like a bad kid, is causing a problem, and they can go in and keep the families from being at each other's throats. And it's a very delicate thing that takes a lot of experience. They acquire experience over the years. I wouldn't have Doug's job. It's a heck of a responsibility, and he smooths things over. And then there's the part about having to euthanize animals. Somebody's got to make that decision.
That takes a terrible toll
It
on
does.
people. Yes.
And Doug has to decide what conditions he can tolerate any longer. There's too much crowding with animals. Some of the animals he knows he can feel will not be placed. They're not going to get out of that pound. They're never going to walk out because they're ugly or something. And he gets attached to everybody, all of them. So it's a neighborhood thing. It's a very sensitive thing that requires a lot of experience, and it requires somebody who's going to love animals and love your neighborhoods.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to point out, and I know with Kathy and Dana and some of the work that's been done in past years, the Clewiston Friends of Animals is one of their focuses is spaying and neutering of animals, you know, at a low cost rate. And Kathy, is there any information that you're going to give on another? Can you just share with that without?
Meet Thursday.
Okay.
We're trying to establish a facility here, and there's a group over at Fort Myers that wants to come in here and do surgeries, do
Right. So we're looking for a low-cost spay and neuter for a weekend event.
Gulf Coast Humane Society already comes out to Montour free the second Thursday of every month.
Okay. So I'm sorry. So it's a Gulf Coast
Gulf Coast
Humane Society that comes out to Montour Ranch
helps them out, and they
Oh.
spay and neuter
for free on what days?
on the second
Thursday.
Second Thursday? Second Tuesday?
of the month.
Okay. And that is where in Montour?
Mary Lou's, they go there, pick the dog,
Okay.
animals up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then take
Transport them.
Myers.
Okay.
It's at their own expense.
Okay.
And they bring them
Alright.
back the next day, Kathy, or something like that?
Can we share that on the City of Clewiston Police Department? Is it already on there, the animal control?
But we can
Okay,
share it
let's
on
just
there.
share that on there. Okay. All right. Thank you, Kathy.
One more quick question, and it seems like you spent a little bit of time at the kennel. How much interest is there for adoption, people coming in looking for dogs? 'Cause I know it's a big thing on the coast. I mean, everybody gets they don't want to pay, of course, $2,000 for a dog at the mall. They'd rather go and pick themselves a nice pet at one of those adoption agencies for less or whatever, for minimal cost.
Like for this month, there was
One.
adoption.
But do
Really?
people come up there and visit?
No, people do come up part of the
Look.
time, and I think Chief has addressed that as far as changing the schedule to where it would be more accommodating for people in the afternoons, that they can come up and they can go and look. In the fact they get, one of the problems we have is we have to network with Clewiston Humane Society, or Clewiston Animal Clinic to get our dogs vetted, because that is the best place at this point for us to, the closest place, to have our dogs vetted. So sometimes they have to wait. They come in there, when you adopt, it's immediate. You go to Lee County, they already have a section where the animals are already fixed and ready to go. So they come in, their motion hits, and they pick them out. With us, they come in, and then they fill out a paper, and they pay $50 to the Clewiston Police Department. Then we make an appointment with Clewiston Humane Society, and then we try to get the dog there, the cat there in this case. And it's been about 2-3 weeks out. That's one of the reasons why we want to get the clinic, something going here, at least a free spay and neuter clinic.
To help out, right.
Yeah, to help
To
them
lessen the
out.
numbers of strays.
Right,
Okay.
because we did have a vet from Jupiter come in one time and just fixed every one of our dogs. And it made them all much more adoptable, but I will say though, most animals leave here rescued. This month, out of 46 dogs, 34 went to rescues.
So,
Some of them are still there, and I think there was one adoption.
okay. So the majority of the dogs or the animals are rescued out of the animal control. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that work as well.
And to kind of piggyback on what Kathy said a little bit with the way we have to do our spay and neuters, we set the appointment up, and then that responsibility of making sure that these people adopting the animals, making sure that they get those animals over there. I mean, more times than not, we're making follow-up phone calls. We're following up to make sure that they made it to those appointments and what have you. So that's an additional burden that we're also taking on to make sure that they're following through on those appointments, because we set the appointments up for them, and we're making sure that happens. So.
Okay. All right. Well, any thoughts and ideas on making those changes to make it easier? Just maybe with the Humane Societies, they have some suggestions that we can look at. And don't forget again the Clewiston Friends of Animals to see what
And
we
that's why
can do
we're
to help
meeting
out.
Thursday to
Okay,
try to
good.
hopefully come together and identify a solution to overcome some of those issues.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on animal control? Okay. Yes, sir.
One more, we'd like to point out one more thing. You
Okay.
see in the Capitol, if you'll notice, he has requested a capital item, $10,000 for cameras at the facility. And you may want to speak on that.
And that, in addition to cameras, that also includes getting that building connected back to the network. Some time ago, there was a fiber optic cable running to that building that connects to utilities, and then through utilities, it's able to access the internet and our local network here. That was been damaged over the course of the years. I don't know how, don't know when, but it's never been repaired. So
Connectivity,
we have no
okay.
connectivity in that building. There is no landline in that building, and we would really like. to put some type of, we need to put cameras there.
And I know we were just talking about the huge amount of risk, so the cameras.
There's a remarkable amount of risk there, not only from, like Ms. Kathy pointed out, from the employee side and the volunteer side, because you know you're dealing with animals and you don't know what kind of background they came from, you don't know their temperament, you don't know what they're capable of, and then also the public accesses that building. And then also, I mean, there's times that, you know, we may find ourselves having seized an animal that's evidence in a criminal case. So being able to have that 24-hour a day 24-hour a day security over that building is important to us.
And you've had people try to get back in and get their dogs.
I'm sorry, ma'am?
So you've had people try to get back in and get their dogs.
Well, not since I've been here, but maybe prior to me that's happened, but I don't recall that, but I'm sure that you would know better than I. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
We have no landline.
No, so that building is not connected to anything right now. No, there's not.
That's not good.
No, there's no phone in
it
that
rings
building.
at-
There's
it rings
no
at the police
network
department.
connectivity in that building.
Cell phone that you guys
It's
use.
a cell phone.
Yeah, but a person can get separated from their cell phone.
Yes, sir, exactly. And we don't like to use the cell phone because what's happened in the past, and I'll just real quick, I mean, again, it's just informational purposes, is we've failed to accurately capture the numbers and the calls because so many calls for service were going in through that cell phone because the public would have the number and they would call that and the officer did what they should have done. They responded to the citizen and they went out and handled the incident. But sometimes that information, that call for service wouldn't get captured to where we could actually use that for statistical purposes. So we've taken some steps to try to mitigate that problem and to where now we're hopefully capturing all that data once again and making sure that we have that information to bring to you.
And that
How do
way-
you
that-
capture it?
We're making sure that those calls come in through the communication center at the police department versus to a cell phone. And then, you know, the employee, the staff out there also has direction to, if they do receive that phone call on that cell phone, that they still need to notify our communication center so that a call is created for that call for service. So there's a record of that call for service. So now we know what happened. So those are some issues that we've been working to overcome. We've been through a number. Our staff has rolled over several times out there in the last couple of years. So you know those are things we're trying to overcome as well. But we're working towards it. We're getting better, and it's just again it's been a work in progress. So, I'm sorry.
The thing with me is you tell me a story or a thing that happened with a dog. You tell it to me. I'm going to tell it to Molly, and there's no way I'm going to tell her exactly the way you told me.
Oh no, absolutely.
And Molly's going to tell Julio, and there's no way that she's going to tell Julio the same way I told her, or that I, you know, so we're messing with third-hand information as it gets traveled.
Right.
When it comes to
And
a
that's
cell
why the
phone and
importance
then
of the
gets-
camera.
The cameras
Yeah,
and a landline,
absolutely.
No, they need that. Yes,
ported landline.
Yes, sir. All that needs to be installed in that building, and right now we don't have that capability. So included in that $10,000 is not only cameras,
I don't like spending the $10,000. I can tell you that right now, but
but it also fixes our connectivity issues at that building as well,
Right.
which
But
plagued us for years now.
again, it's a one expense deal, and the way we're operating is in like a third world country, and
Needs to be a
that's just not
landline in there.
There
that's
used
just
to.
not good.
Yeah, there used to be. You're right, and there used to be, but it was damaged over the years. And
I
JD,
know the network hasn't worked out there since I've been here. And they hadn't had a phone since I've been here.
Right.
and I know
The calls go to the police department.
the calls for service should be going through the police department so that we capture that call,
Right.
and
So
that we
they
can
call the
create a
number,
call
it goes
record
there,
for
it just
that
doesn't
call.
ring at animal control.
Yeah, once we get the network fixed, we can get a voice over IP phone out.
Right.
And it would run just like any of the other ones in the city. You
Okay.
could page anybody,
Okay.
you could do anything.
All right.
Which would really be good because and then it would connect them to the city's network. They would have access to all the resources that any other city employee has. I know since I've been here, there hasn't been a phone out there, and in order to access anything, we have to use an air card on a computer, which sometimes isn't the best scenario. It would be much more stable and much more secure over an actual wired LAN network.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, we're going to take care of it, right?
Yes, ma'am. Or yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right, anything else under the animal control?
One thing
Yes.
I just wanted to say, there is a need for the cameras, there is a need for what you're talking about, because there have been
There's no
cases
doubt.
over the years where an animal comes in, we have no idea where it came from.
Yeah.
So if we knew who brought it in, then we could address that and find out what the, what's the deal with the animal.
Sure.
It hasn't happened, but a couple times it's up in here, but there have been animals stolen out of there, but it hasn't happened in the last 3 or 4 years. That, to my knowledge, but I'd feel a lot more secure if there were cameras out there.
Absolutely.
Well,
I think it's a
there
very,
needs to be.
very good investment. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. Anything else on animal control? Okay, police department.
I'm gonna real quick. Do you mind if I give you guys a copy of
No,
something?
no,
that I
not at all.
What's your step?
Thank you.
And again, this is just for informational purposes. I'll go over it with you if you have any questions on anything.
Okay, thank you.
The back page is just some statistical information, just kind of a snapshot of what we're looking at going into 2018. And
9 in the last 13 days.
yes, I mean, at this time last year, we were at 22, and we're already at 30. I'm sorry, yes, last year at this time, we were at 22, and we're already at 33. So for the entire year last year, it was 46.
Okay. And what we're talking about, go ahead, because I haven't looked at the paperwork. So for
Well, I'm sorry,
Glenn-
those were just felonious law enforcement officer line of duty deaths.
Too many.
And again, that's just for informational purposes, just to kind of.
Okay. So where would you like for us to start?
What I prepared is kind of just a rundown of the police department, how our staff is currently allocated in the police department, is at the top of page 1 there. And then it breaks it down by assignment, actually, and how those individuals are assigned within the organization to.
Is that the thing you just gave us?
Yes, sir. That packet that I just gave you.
Yeah. Does it have page 1?
Well, it's not numbered page 1, but the first page on the
Okay.
packet, yes, sir. Is again at the top there. It's just how our current personnel are broke down within the police department versus sworn police officers and civilian staff, and then under that is how those 22 personnel are assigned to the various functions that we staff there through the communications division, support staff personnel, investigations, and patrol, which makes up the biggest part of our personnel over there. Under that is currently the officers per 1,000, which is at 2.09. The national average under that is 3.7, and that was obtained from that was again based off of the 2016 FBI crime statistics for agencies that serve populations under 10,000 people. So again, that's kind of how that plays out in relation to what the FBI says the norm is. And then, one further, we're at about 2.88 people per 1,000 if you combine all 22 people into that lump sum. We originally were looking at, and I'll get to this later on, but maybe requesting an additional position. We've since pulled that request. We're not going to do that, even though there's some numbers that indicate that we could maybe use that position. We weren't. But if we continued that, we would have been at 2.22 police officers per 1,000 here in the community. Under that, what I did is I went back for several years and just looked at the police department operating budget and kind of broke it out into per capita cost, what each individual person within the city pays for law enforcement services for the year. As you can see, in 2018, the average cost per person in the city of Clewiston for police services was $253.79 a year. Now, that number doesn't capture, there's a couple things there. That number doesn't capture what the businesses pay. That's just actual people that, per the population, which, again, it's been several years. Obviously, we're coming up on another census, but that's what our projected population is now, 7,648 people. I think Sherry said my number was a little bit different than what she actually uses for the per capita cost that she has, but I think it was relatively close.
Yes.
Okay. So again, that's $253.79 per person. That's based on our population. Again, that doesn't capture the business community's cost or their investment in our law enforcement services. And then I just took it a little bit further and broke it out into a daily cost of 70 cents a day is what each individual citizen pays for law enforcement services here. So again, just kind of for informational purposes. And then we looked at the population change since 2010. And again, those are all based on projections as there hasn't been a census conducted since then. We're coming up on that now. So, and that's the first page.
Okay.
Good.
Right.
The second page kind of goes into our minimum staffing, and this is where I was initially contemplating maybe requesting that additional position. If you look at the number of zones that we staff per shift, and when I say zones, we don't necessarily have it broken into zones, but ideally we like to have 3 officers on a shift. It usually is comprised of a supervisor and 2 line level officers. We feel that provides for the greatest degree of safety for our officers and our staff, as well as it lets us go out and effectively complete the mission that we're required to do. To provide that safe community and hopefully overall improve the quality of life for the citizens here in our community. So we like to have 3 a day. That means 3 a shift. Which means we staff 6 zones a day per se, which means that annually that's 2,190 zones. Well, the number of man hours needed per year is 26,280. When we look at the number of hours we have, when we budget our staff, we're at 2,184 hours a year, or known hours that we get from those employees, okay? Mm-hmm. That's what they're scheduled for, based on the 12-hour workday, 14 days a month, 7 days every pay period, on the current schedule that we have them working. We know that we have an estimated time lost of 227 hours based off vacation training, sick time used, and other various times that they take off. We know we're going to have somewhere in that vicinity. So realistically, out of the 2,184 hours we have them scheduled, we get them for about 1,957 hours a year. So obviously there's some time lost there, but that's going to happen, whether it be through court, and that's not even taken into account, the time that they spend in court. Mm-hmm. If they work a night shift and they have to go sit in court, they obviously can't come back and work that night again. So there could be time lost as a result of that. Also, that number doesn't capture a lot of that also because there's so much uncertainty involved in that. You just never know how those are going to play out. So when we look at the true number of officers needed, the actual number comes out at 13.43, but again, that's just for informational purposes. We're not requesting that additional position. And this is just patrol staff. This isn't taking into account the investigations staff that we have, which consists of 2 people, nor the administrative staff. This is just looking at patrol officers.
Okay.
As is the first page.
Okay.
With the 2.09 per 1,000. And then the second, just a couple graphs give me the visual representation of those numbers that we just went over. The last page, or not the last page, I'm sorry, the 4th page there, again just goes into a little bit more explanation on the number of shifts that an officer works per year, their number of available hours, how those days actually break down with their days off, their vacation time, sick time, any disciplinary time that they receive, time for injury, training, and other time that they take off. So you can see there's a number of hours there as well. And again, that's not capturing court and any other time that they may have as well. So the predicted hours through there, again, that number is there for you. And then the predicted yearly shifts are 164, which gives us the shift relief factor of 2.2. And if we come down, we look at the calls for service. Again, 2018, that number, that 5,496, obviously doesn't capture the whole year. That's just the number of calls that we had responded to already this year when I prepared this document, which was in June. So that captures kind of the first half of the year. Okay. So if we kind of hold true to what the history has shown us, we should be somewhere in the same ballpark again. So and then it shows how many calls per year that officer handles, and then below that it shows the average time we spend on calls, which is about 0.58 hours per call, which equates out to that we spend 7,694 hours a year just answering calls for service.
Okay. Chief, can you tell me what happens when a 911 call goes in and where does it go?
If it's made within the city of Clewiston, it comes to our public safety answering point here in our 911 center. Now, there are a number of circumstances that may result in it not coming here. You know, those are beyond my ability to explain.
Person uses a cell phone
Yes, sir.
and I dial 911.
Yes, sir.
Where's it go?
If the system works like it should and you're within the city of Clewiston, it should ring to the police department's 911 center.
If it doesn't,
If it doesn't, it's probably going to go to the sheriff's office, the Henry County Sheriff's Office Communications Center.
because a person calls me a week ago or so, and they call 911, they end up in LaBelle.
Yes, sir. That's quite possible.
And then they couldn't get switched over,
And it's also quite possible that you're in the unincorporated areas of Hendry County, just outside the city limits, but you're so close in some of our communities that are just outside of our city that if you call from your cell phone, your call is going to come to our 911 center, and we're going to have to transfer you over to the sheriff's office 911 center. So again, that situation that you just described works both
dropped.
ways. I'm sorry?
how does it get dropped? Because this is what happened to this person.
Well, that's beyond me. I don't understand how the technology of the system, I don't understand.
They would drop a call.
One system, the cell system dropped?
That could be
or-
from the cell
Yeah.
service.
And again, yeah, that's beyond my.
Don't they have, if you've already called into 911,
You
they
have
already
your
have your
phone
number.
number.
They could,
Yes.
if there was a drop call, they'd call
can
back.
call you back, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I remember. Okay.
Yes, when it rings into our system through the enhanced 911 and the various advances in that system, we get your phone number and we're able to call you back, and even go so far as to, you know, if we're able to have a visual representation of where you are within our county or our city.
That was all provided for under the 911 phase 2.
Yes.
Along that line, how close are you to next gen for texting and video?
Those are talks that we're kind of just now having, so I don't have a time frame.
Okay, and that's coordinated through
Emergency management.
Emergency management and the county 911 function, yes, ma'am.
All right, in your handout, you have one more page here. Would you like to go over that?
That's just, you know, again, just informational purposes. It just shows the dangers that our law enforcement officers face out there every day, you know, and what they go through. And again, this is just so much of a snapshot of what they do every day. This is, you know, just, it you know, shows just, again, the danger that they face every day. I mean, at this time last year in 2017, there were, you know, 22 officers killed in the line of duty. This year, you know, we're just halfway through the year and there's already 33. You know, at the same time last year, there was only 22. So, you know, we've experienced quite a few more. And if you look too on the right-hand side of the handout, 14 of those are in the South region.
It's a very different season.
It is. It's very different. Yes, ma'am. You're right. And then you look, you know, the times that those happen, the circumstances that they were under. You know, 18 of those, you know, a handgun was used, and it breaks it out by weapon type and everything else. So it just provides you with kind of a snapshot of just, you know, what's going on in the world today, and the dangers that the men and women that are out there in our community doing what they can to protect us are facing every day, and just how, you know, important it is. You know.
Absolutely, and we appreciate them so much.
Thank you.
Every
Thank
single one of them. Every single one of them. Thank you for this information. There's a lot here, so I know if we have questions, we can come to you directly and ask you.
Absolutely, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. Okay, so the budget.
Do you want to talk, or you want me to?
Well, you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You guys got
The
Police
worksheet
budget.
summary. Mm-hmm.
and you'll notice we're realizing a 10% increase. To start off with personnel, we're increasing it by $39,022 with this budget. A large part of that is, of course, the healthcare, not knowing about that yet. But the chief has also requested to implement a policy for increasing a beginning officer pay. When they come in, they're considered a grade 16. Their starting salary is $17.84. It's a little over $39,000 a year. They're all required to take a training. It's like a 12-week course when they come. It's no matter their experience, you request them to take a community policing program.
If you don't mind, you want me
No,
to speak on
no,
this? Okay.
good.
First and foremost, let me just say that, these are all requests. All right. I keep hearing the term used that there is an increase. Well, there's not. These are obviously requests that, we wanted to bring before the commission and say, these are the things we would like to see. And totally we understand that, they may not all be possible. So just to kind of obviously offer that initially. And what Sherry was talking about is that, the 1784 right now, that's what a starting police officer starts at our organization with, which is comparable to many local law enforcement agencies. There are also many that it's not comparable to that are, within a relatively short distance from our local community here. So what we're hoping to implement, or what we would ask for, what we would like to see essentially, is that when you come here, and like Sherry said, no matter your experience, you enter what we call our field training and evaluation program. For a newly hired police officer that has no experience, they're only, they've just graduated the academy. This is their first job in law enforcement. That program could be 12 weeks, it could be 14, it could be 16 weeks, depending on how they progress through that program. And if we realize any deficiencies along the way, if there's any retraining that has to be done, the whole 9 yards. So again, the program's designed to be 12 weeks, but it could be as long as 14 or 16, depending again on that individual's progress through the program. Now, having said that, I mean, if we have a law enforcement officer that comes to us, just which we recently have that has, an extensive amount of law enforcement experience, that program might be abbreviated somewhat because there's no need to go through a lot of the basics, if you will, when they already have that foundational knowledge.
Right.
So again, that program could be 6 weeks, or 4 weeks with somebody with an extensive amount of knowledge. So the program, it varies. There's tests that they have to take to pass the program. And then they obviously have to be approved and signed off on before they become what we refer to as a solo police officer, where they can go out in the field and provide those services to the community that we're responsible for providing with minimal oversight, with minimal supervision, without having to have somebody right there looking over their shoulder for everything they do. So what we're proposing, or what we're asking for, is that during that field training and evaluation program cycle, that the pay be the $17.84. Once we've made that investment in that person, we've bought uniforms, which are expensive. We've invested numerous. I mean, if we got 16 weeks, 12 weeks even invested in a person, now we have numerous man hours invested in that person, numerous resources invested in that person. It's expensive to employ somebody, and to put that in, get that person out there and ready to go. So once we've made that investment in them and we've got them trained and now they've become a part of our team, and this is where, we want them to stay in our community. Again, we want to implement that pay grade to where we can, hopefully retain them and give them that incentive to stay, if you will, not just use us to get the experience
the
they
next
need
level,
to move on
right.
to another department.
Right, and so what you're requesting and looking at what you have and the officers you have and
Yes.
in the future, the
Yes.
total cost you're estimating is $13,387.
With this budget.
With
What
this
What
budget.
he's asking,
Right.
what, in a nutshell, what
I mean,
that
it's
means
increasing
is-
their salaries for the 5 officers and then, or the,
Well, a new officer, once they come, they start at $17.84. Once
Right.
that program's complete, they're automatically raised to the $18.52, which is 3 grades. So what I tried to put in here is just to point out that, because I'm a numbers person. Anyway, you have basically 6 positions that this will affect. 5 of them are currently,
Okay.
we have a vacant position now, but we have 5 officers there in our agency now
Right.
that make less than the requested grade for once that education is
Community
completed.
policing
So
education is
he's-
completed,
So
okay.
this request, or what he would like to see, is that these officers get increased to,
Right.
the existing positions are increased to the $18.52.
Okay, and that impact is $13,387.
Yes.
Okay,
Compared to the $17.84.
right, okay.
I got a question,
Sure.
since I'm a numbers person also. I'm looking at numbers, and I'm looking at 2 vacant positions. And this is on page 10.
That was sergeant.
But we have two. Well, we have 2 vacancies right now. We have a supervisory
Let me
position.
finish,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and then you don't have to do over.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No. On health insurance, on one of these vacant positions, we've got 18,000 and some odd dollars. On health insurance.
Yes, sir.
On the next vacant position, we got $8,160.
That was just simply a way of evening it out, because we have no idea what an employee will choose once they come. It could be single, family, spouse, children, and the variance is 8,100, what we have in our budget right now currently, because we're basing it on the anticipated increase. It could be anywhere from $8,160 is what we anticipate as single coverage is, to the top would be a family per year, $18,539. That would be what the city pays for an employee with family coverage. So that's what I did, because if the officer comes and they select family coverage and we don't have that there, then we're looking at a
Don't they pay a
shortage.
certain amount of their family coverage?
Yes, they do.
What amount is that?
They pay 40%.
So the cost isn't 18,000,
That's
it's
it.
30,000.
Yes, sir. Benefits are around 35%, all told.
Right, and you
For
have an
police
increase in here,
officers.
which we don't know if we're gonna realize that.
No, it may
right.
be lower, and this will be reduced. Every budget will be reduced. I simply don't know, so I have to
You're estimating
plan. I'm
high.
estimating because I don't want to have to come in here, because I don't want to have to come in and say, well, I don't want to have to have a problem because
I understand.
because we under budgeted for benefits.
Right.
I understand.
Yes, sir.
I think we really should have done our insurance
We're,
different.
we're still looking, I mean, we're
Well,
just.
I understand.
yeah.
I understand, but there's a thing of being able to do a budget and not do a budget.
Right. The
And
city
the way we
manager-
are right now, we can't do a budget.
Well, this is every year, we're not sure when our insurance
Well-
premiums will come in. Al, if you'd like to explain that?
This has been
I know that.
forever. We don't get our benefit numbers until the very end.
Well,
And simply,
I've
actually the
I've
first
sat
year we-
on a lot of commissions, and I've really never been put in this position.
and it's on, the estimation is on my part, Commissioner Rollins, simply because I don't want to have to come in here and I don't want to have to worry. I'm a person that's kind of conservative, so I base the budget on conservative numbers, simply because I know we did not receive an increase last year. Our rates did not go up at all. So
Right.
I would rather be high and not have to worry about that.
And come in under.
Right, and,
Right.
and you're still following up. I mean, we're looking at different
I'll
options.
have one of the quotes next week. It's
Okay.
ready now.
Okay, all right. So before September, we will know exactly where we're at. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
She's
We got
driving.
30 days.
She's driving to Clewiston next week to meet with me.
okay. So that was, we were talking about the variance explanation. So going back to that first page or second page that we're looking at, you have we talked about the 13,387, and there's a few other things on that page under page 2. Can we just go through those?
Right, the FRS, the Just to note that the retirement rate that we pay on special risk, it increased this year 1.23%. So it went from 23.27% to 24.5%.
Okay.
And
What page is this on?
We're on page 2.
we're talking about our
Second
personnel
page.
expenses, the differences that you will see and the reasons why.
Okay.
Okay, and then under operating,
We increased the utilities because, as we all know, we have a new police station. So we increased them to $20,000, which was an additional $1,700 just to make sure with regards to that. The fuel, what we've noticed is that we did a review of the fuel and some calculations that I do every year for the budget. So we tweaked their fuel budget by $5,000 because they have been using a little bit more fuel. So they went from, I believe, 40,000 to 45,000.
Yes.
okay.
And then also the uniform account, it was increased $7,100. And what the chief would like to see is that the police department, they don't have any cold weather gear. So a big portion of that is to issue them some duty gear for jackets and what have you.
And right now we have officers walking around with holes in their uniforms, and we can't afford to replace a lot of them. Those are things that we want to be able to address every year. Not all of our officers have adequate cold weather gear. We do have some jackets over there. They're worn. Some of them are they're not suitable to wear out. They don't present a very professional appearance. So those are things that we want to address as well.
Okay.
And then again, being able to replace those uniforms on a more frequent basis, so we're not walking around with holes in our uniforms.
Right. Okay, and that request is $7,100.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any kind of expense that the officers pay for their uniforms?
No.
It's all paid for by the city?
Yes. We take care of the alterations and everything.
Okay.
That way, when we get that uniform in and we put that uniform on that officer, they look good in that uniform, and it's not something that they're going out and they're taking care of on their own, and it's kind of their interpretation. I mean, we make sure that the pants fit them, we make sure that the uniform shirts are sized properly, and that they have everything they need to go out there. Unfortunately, we've experienced turnover in the police department as well. So a lot of our uniform budget has been ate up, in that turnover because we have to, from the duty gear we wear to the uniforms we wear, we have to buy those.
And that's kind of standard in all police departments?
Yes, sir.
Maintenance and repairs?
There's an addition of $4,000 for maintenance of grounds because we'll have some lawn that needs to be mowed with the new police department. And also the vehicle maintenance has been increased $5,000 based upon our review and what's been happening. So all told, the operating expenses will realize a 12% increase.
How many vehicles do we have that are out of a maintenance contract?
We don't have maintenance contracts on any of them. The Dodge Chargers still have warranty left on them, obviously for certain items, but that's it. And what are we going into year 2 now?
Yeah.
So those, that's at a 3-year, 36,000. So we're coming up to the end of those warranty periods also. We're over that halfway point, if you will. So.
Okay, capital equipment?
You want me to cover this real quick?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
let him cover that.
I just wanted to mention real quick, we can offset some of our additional costs for like the mowing and stuff that we didn't have before from the lease of the ATM that Seacoast is going to have there. It's going to be $250 a month. They're going to pay us to lease the ATM to leave it in our parking lot, so that'll help a little bit with
what
our
contract is too.
offset a little bit of that cost for the mowing. So.
Okay. And it currently costs us $250 a month for the mowing contract, so
Okay,
that would be almost a break even.
Okay.
Or it would be a break even.
That should be on the
I think
next
it's
agenda, I
250.
believe.
I think that's what it is, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
The capital equipment, real quick, and not to step on Sherry's toes, but I think I have a little better understanding of this, and I'll defer to Mr. Lucas, if not. But what this represents, again, is, the IT upgrades to continue building on that initiative that we started last year. And this will serve a couple of purposes. One is we're looking to purchase software that would help provide a more stable and reliable environment for those officers in the field, as we come to rely more and more and more on those mobile devices that we have in the field, in an effort, again, to move the office from the physical office and into the front seat of that police car, so that police car spends more time in the community where it's most effective, from just the visibility of it being out there. And again, we want to provide them a real-time information that's available to them, when they need it, not after the fact, or when it's no longer useful to them, or obviously when it may have changed the course of an outcome that they were, of a situation that they found themselves facing. So again, this just builds on that, helps us to leverage the capabilities, of those technological advances, and just give them more and more and more capabilities in the front seat of their car. Again, move the office from that office where we could have 14 cars sitting in the back of the police department, but obviously they serve a public interest more by being out in those communities. So that's kind of what we're hoping with that. Also, currently there's some other things we need to continue building on our system. Right now we don't have a backup solution that really is backing up our data on a daily basis. And I know that we've recently experienced a situation where that was proved.
It was very relevant for us in the city. We
Yes.
got potential data loss that we were able to get back. I'm proposing the same solution that we use in the city for the police station.
Okay.
It's,
Right.
Very good against ransomware or anything else like that. The current solution that they have would be susceptible to it if it were to hit, just due to the nature of how the backup is now.
Okay.
So this solution kind of takes that away. That's one less attack vector, basically. And it's a more robust solution in general. I had us back up here in a day and a half. I couldn't do that in the police station right now. I just can't. I don't have the hardware. I don't have the software for it.
Okay.
Which would present a problem for us, obviously.
And that all has to be done under FDLE's guidelines,
Well,
right? Their
not
IT
all of
guidelines.
it. Not all of it. Some of it is just protecting.
Since it's all in the secure network anyway, and it's not going off-site, once
Okay.
I'm behind that firewall and all that, I'm good.
Okay.
So if we wanted to do something off-site, which I would like to look into in the future, we would have some stuff we have to comply with. But for right now, I want an on-site one at least.
Thank you.
All right.
Right, and right now that again, our solution is, after talking to JD, I don't think that we could recover all of our data should we, experience either some sort of cyber attack or physical loss or a hardware failure for that matter. That's a concern, obviously.
Yeah,
That could be
hard drives die and stuff like that,
catastrophic.
so
I'm sorry, ma'am.
So that could be catastrophic.
It absolutely could.
it would be bad.
Okay. And so the IT upgrades you're looking at, servers and net motion for a more stable environment.
Yep.
35,000.
And there's some other stuff in there we need to. We also right now we're running off of a version of SQL Server that we need to update.
Okay.
Firewall needs to update.
Our firewall needs updating. So a lot of relevant security issues as well as some operational things also that are just going to provide for a more stable and robust environment for us to be able to have access to that information and again leverage those those technological capabilities, if you will.
Right.
So also in there is vehicles. Again, real quickly just to talk about this. We just bought the 10 and I understand that, but we also had several other vehicles that were they're aging, if you will, and they're starting to become more of a maintenance burden as they as we put more and more miles on them, and as we use them, some of them not for a purpose that they were not designed to be used for. So the maintenance burden is starting to increase. I mean, we have one vehicle that was out of service for, I want to say, over a month, that we were just able to get back, and it's becoming a chronic issue with that vehicle. And again, a lot of it relates just to the way that we use them, the manner and how we use them and what we do with them in the fields and the equipment that we put in them. And again, some of them weren't designed for that. So we've come up with a number of solutions that a number of things we're going to do to help overcome that, but we would, also like to request to purchase, 2 additional vehicles to help, again, build that fleet up. And then again, to where we have spare vehicles, because we do have auxiliary officers and reserve officers on staff that should they want to come out and augment, our patrol officers, or when they come out to help with special events, it'd be nice to have a car to allow them to use. In addition to that, if there's a failure, if somebody's car is in the shop, or if, God forbid something happens and they don't have their car anymore, do we have a spare to put them into that they can utilize? And right now, that we would be hard pressed,
Slim
to
pickings.
say the least. So there's some other things we're going to do to help that, but definitely if we could purchase a couple more. Now, we put the Chevy Tahoes in there, and we really want to go to the SUVs just because we think that's a more practical solution. We think it's especially with what's out there now. And we went with the Chevy Tahoes only for the simple reason is that the cutoff date for ordering the Ford Explorers, the police Interceptor utilities, is September 21st. They're not going to. I just got a flyer the other day that says they're not going to accept any orders for those after September 21st. Obviously, that.
What's the difference in the cost?
It's about $7,000, I think. I gave you the quotes. I think it was $7,000. The Chevy Tahoe's fully outfitted, ready to put a police officer in. We take delivery of them, we put them on our inventory, and we put a police officer in them, and they go to work. It's $7,000 more than the cost for the police, the Fords.
It's going to discontinue the police package in the Explorer?
No, actually, from talking to the dealer, that's what they're going to start putting all their resources into, is just that utility, because that seems like what more and more departments want. It's a more practical vehicle. And it gives you those capabilities to carry all the stuff that we're requiring some of these police officers to carry.
Let me add something real quick. We met with Enterprise Fleet Management, which sells a lot of vehicles, and the county, I think the sheriff's department bought a handful from them. U.S. Sugars bought a handful from Enterprise, and they said that the go-to vehicle for law enforcement today is the Ford Explorer. Am I right, Chief?
Yes, sir.
He said that's the most popular one out right now that everybody's going to. Now, I wanted to say that the cars that we just bought 3 years ago, the Chargers, they've been a poor car for. We've had a lot of maintenance issues with them. The industry's had a maintenance issue with those cars, and I just wanted to throw it out there that we constantly have one of them in the shop. If not 2, so I just wanted to plant that seed. We didn't know that when we bought them, and remember when we got them, they were 2 years old. They were brand new 2014s, I believe, weren't they?
We're 2014's brand new, yes.
Yeah, we haven't had the best of luck with them, but they're decked out in police package. They just.
But let's talk about, because before we used to have SUVs, and then we said no, we really didn't need them because of the patrolling, street patrolling. You really didn't need SUVs.
Well, there were voices that said we did need
Well, can I
A combination is what we were, so that's why we went with the cars.
Right, and there's been, obviously the industry is leaning more and more now towards the SUVs, and they've taken those SUVs, for instance, and they're true police vehicles now, is where the SUVs 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, they weren't true police vehicles. They were
SUVs that they outfitted for.
Exactly.
For
These vehicles now, whether you choose to buy the police Interceptor utility or the Chevy Tahoe, those are purpose-built police vehicles. So they're sport utility vehicles. So you get all the functionality of a sport utility. The capabilities that come along with that. The roominess of that vehicle, so that you can carry, all the things that we ask police officers to carry now, and have available to them, just to do their jobs, as well as it still maintains those qualities of a police vehicle.
Okay.
In that it has, it's been upfitted. It can, its handling characteristics are different, if you will, in the event that you find yourself, operating that vehicle at above speeds that would be considered normal for the average daily driver, or in a pursuit situation, if you will. So those things have changed remarkably, and I think the industry's came a long ways to make those SUVs now true police cars, as were, again, 7 to 8 years ago they weren't.
We know during the hurricanes, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have the utility vehicles, because,
Yes.
in the cars, we knew were for patrolling or for maintenance purposes, we thought would be better patrolling on the streets. But there's no doubt that there is a need for SUVs. The question I have on this is, I know you mentioned the Ford. I know at one time we had the Dodge Durangos.
They don't make a police package SUV.
Right. And then now, because I know that the Chevy Tahoe is the one that's outfitted completely.
Yes.
When we look at maintenance and we look at having to take care of these vehicles in the future, that there's not a local dealer.
There's not. You're right. Nor a Ford dealer.
Okay.
Unless you drive to LaBelle.
Right.
So
And these would be bought through like state contracts or piggyback?
Yes, this one's NJPA, which is the National Joint Powers Alliance. So there is, yes.
My just concern is going forward and looking at maintaining them. I know we have our own mechanic shop, but the cost of going out of town to do what needs to be done to a
Right.
dealership.
Right.
I know there's probably some in Okeechobee, which is an hour away. Either coast also, there's probably an hour away. So, but the importance of having them completely outfitted and that they are police units, that is something that has to be considered. So,
And I had the numbers here in front of me just to correct some of the things. For the Ford Interceptor utility, which is the one that the cutoff date for ordering is September 21st. So obviously that's not going to be an option. Fully outfitted, ready to go vehicle was $42,803.64.
So it's $7,000 cheaper.
Well, and then and my numbers were wrong. My memory did not serve me correctly. The Tahoe fully outfitted for one car was $47,250. So there's a little less than $5,000 difference between the two. When you look at overall cost, if we do go with two, it's $94 for the Tahoes versus $85 for the Fords. And again, the Fords, the cutoff date September 21st. So.
And a big difference in size too.
Yes. I've driven both, and I've driven both, and I like both. So either way is fine.
A lot more
And that's
vehicle.
before any tariffs may kick in, and we have to take a look at the increase.
Yes, ma'am. But then again, like I said, September 21st, from what I got the other day, was the cutoff date for the Interceptor utilities. So that's probably not even an option because of that. So that would only leave the Tahoes as being the option.
What do you think? I know you ride by Allen J and Sebring. They've got
That's who quoted us.
6 million
Yes.
police cars out there.
But
that
they're
sit
all
there.
they're all ordered for organizations
Are they for
already.
other
They're all
people?
yes, and that's who I actually went up and seen them several weeks ago, and that's who prepared these quotes for me. And I spent several hours up there with.
So they don't think they'll order any extra.
No, and he actually told me then. He said we don't know when the cutoff date's going to be yet, but there's a very good chance it's going to be before October 1st. And sure enough, I got a flyer last week in the mail. Yes, it was last week I got in the mail that said that the cutoff date for them was September 21st. They're not going to take any orders after that for them.
That's the Ford or the
That's the
Chevrolet?
Ford, yes, sir. So we just, there was.
but do you think could be any change on that, the date?
I'll call,
Okay.
but I don't think so. No, because they knew already that they probably weren't going to make it through the end of the year.
Okay.
That the orders for them were going to be so great that they were going to cut them off early, or they weren't going to be able to meet the orders.
Request, okay. All right.
And
Again,
that
that's
was
the Ford or the Chevrolet?
That's the Ford, yes, sir. The Chevrolet, the Tahoes were not a concern at that time when I spoke with the dealer, with the salesman.
They use the Tahoes a lot in fire departments.
They do. I think that's what the
Those
fire
are
department's getting is one of those. So
Okay.
they're good vehicles. I've driven one of those also, and I had no issues with it.
Okay, I think Commissioner Rodriguez has some questions.
Well, I'm gonna navigate through the police department if you allow me to. We're gonna go on a little ride with me.
Okay.
I think the most important service that we give to this community is your department, the safety.
Thank you.
Safety is number one. I know the hospital is important. I know our utilities is important and our water, but safety, I think, has got to be
Thank you.
way up there on the top.
And we
but
try.
but I'm a little bit disappointed that I wish we were presenting a budget with a deficit, and we're not. We're increasing it by about $170,000, roughly, from last year to this year. So, and I think we briefly had a conversation yesterday, and I think one of our biggest issues is personnel. Okay, I understand. And we talked that you always got these vacancies that are 2 or 3, and those vacancies, as well you know or not, they're costing us tons of money, training. And before I finish, there's no contract that if a police officer comes to Clewiston and you hire them, or is there that you hire them, you take them through the program, you dress them. Do they have to stay with us for a certain amount of time?
No.
No, okay, that's because I think you asked that question earlier with animal control, and there's not such a thing, right? So
Unless you send them to the police academy, they sign the contract.
Well, and then I would even question the enforceability of that. Again, that's only as good as the paper that it's written on, and then you would have to, to go after that person and seek, actually ask them to repay it. So again,
Good faith
I would
type
question the
of
enforceability of that, and even wonder,
Does the sheriff's department have anything like that?
The
I
sheriff's
can't
department
speak for
does.
them.
They
I
do.
don't know.
The sheriff told me that back years ago. He said anybody he sends to the police academy signs a 2-year contract.
As we do.
And I
We
know
haven't seen
that-
anybody. We haven't seen anybody in a while.
I know there's been a number of other organizations that have done that, and people leave and they go elsewhere, and then you're left with a bill of $5,000 to $6,000. So how much time are you going to invest in legal services, seeking to recover that $5,000 or $6,000?
It's almost like a good faith contract.
Exactly.
let me not lose my story. I don't want to lose my story. I got a story in my head that I'm to the point where I lose things and I forget. So we're talking about personnel, right? Here's my theory on personnel. We talked about it with the animal control. We're always going to have your base people that have been with us for a while, and they're our core, what I call the core of your department. And we talked about that briefly. We got interfered there. We couldn't talk more, but we talked for about 5 minutes. And then you got 3 or 4 vacancies all the time that you're having to dress, you're having to train. And this is something that at some point we have to think about, to take care better of the people that you have, and you're addressing that a little bit with that first item on that second page. Taking care of those people and not worrying about the numbers so much. And I know there's a number of their statistics and all that, and I'm not privy to them, but I think what we need to do is to take care of the people that we have, to make sure they're not thinking about leaving our department, because we have 3 or 4, or the numbers between 2, 3, or 4. They're always, some of them quit, some of them go to another agency, some maybe you dismiss because they just didn't pan out as what you thought they were going to be. So thinking about it, my advice is not worry about the numbers part of the agency, is keeping the people that you have happy, and that's the part that I have about personnel. Number 2, I think we talked about, and you made a point earlier about technology. So we were thinking about building the biggest, nicest, brightest police department in South Florida. And you make a good point. Those police officers shouldn't be in those. They need to be in the field. So your mentality is good. So to me, a police department is for you, dispatch, and maybe the captain. Everybody else needs to be in the field.
Well, and not to cut
No,
you off,
no.
but we do have some support staff. We have other functions that we have to maintain.
I'm maybe exaggerating, but
No,
what I'm
that's right.
saying
I
is
understand.
you don't need 16 offices for 16 officers.
No, we don't. You're right.
And that's why I went back to the big police department we wanted, that we haven't, that we're still trying to build. I think our police officers need to be in the field.
Absolutely.
And I think you do it. I think the captain, y'all need to be in the field too. People want to see the chief. And I wish that you're, and it may be for protection that your car is, unmarked, but But I wish people knew that you know that the chief was driving around town.
Absolutely.
And that you're going into businesses and I know you know probably 95% of the people in town.
Yes, sir.
And you do also captain. And I said, both of you, and I haven't seen it here, but I will never, and I don't know if it's in the works, hiring lieutenants. We're not thinking about hiring lieutenants. We don't have a lieutenant on the force,
Not
right?
at this point, no.
Again, I think when I see that, it's just fattening the top. We don't need to fatten the top anymore.
No, and we agree with you. And our goal is to make sure that we're investing in those service providing part of our organization, if you will. You know, we want to put more operational individuals out there in our community so that we can better meet the community's needs and be more responsive, hopefully, you know, where things aren't slipping through the cracks, where, you know, people aren't having to wait, you know, for any more time than what's reasonable for us to be there to address their issue and for us to be able to effectively, efficiently go out there and serve the community. No, we agree wholeheartedly with you and
I
are
think
on the same page.
I think the captain, you know, when I approved that, the captain's position was because we didn't want to have two
right.
lieutenants. I don't think we need that many brass. You know, this is a small town, 7,000 people. I support the police department 110%, but we don't need all those top level personnel.
And we agree with you.
You know, I think what we need is
And I think the budget does reflect that. I mean, because you're wanting to put more money on the patrol and their technology. And again, with the police department, that, you know, we went with what we could afford. And I've been over there. There's not 16 offices. There's not going to be 16 offices.
Well, but
So
what
I
I'm saying,
think
though,
that-
Mayor, we got
Yeah.
a $170,000 increase this year. When I'm looking for, the police department is the elephant in the room. I don't know if y'all know that.
Yes,
It's
sir.
the elephant in the room. We can sit here and not think it isn't.
No,
but
we've been
people
referring
out
to that
there,
before. You're right.
people out there, you know, are concerned how we're going to pay for the police department in the future, and I want to keep it viable. I want to keep
Likewise.
it viable because people out there are telling me, look, you know, you should be looking for other options. And I said, well, I like the one we have now. I'm working, but I'm giving all these ideas, and a lot of times my ideas are not, people don't like them or they don't, you know, they don't put them into motion. But it's an elephant in the room. As times get harder, your budget gets bigger. We're gonna have to find how to pay for these $90,000 Tahoes, extra cars, if somebody wants to go ride around town, which I think it's a no-no. I don't think we need. Those are just expenses that I just don't think we should incur. But the police department is one, and I know that some of my fellow commissioners may agree or may disagree with me, but it's the elephant in the room that this commission and the next commissions are going to have to deal with. How we're going to pay for the agency, you know, with the revenue, with the taxes that we have, you know, our ad valorem taxes they don't even pay for the police department. We don't collect enough of ad valorem taxes to pay for the police department. So what I'm always looking is how can we keep the police department viable? And that's all I'm asking. And I may throw some things that some of these folks may not agree with me, but at the end of the day, we got to figure out how to pay for this department and keep this great service that our citizens expect. So, you know, having said and that was just the journey that I wanted to take you through today is that the bottom line is I didn't like to see us increasing the budget overall of the police department today. I'm real disappointed that we did. So I'll leave it at that.
And Commissioner Rodriguez, right now, I mean, those are just items that have been placed in here. Again, this all goes on that final list.
I know.
So the decision's not being made today.
I know,
Okay.
but I want to let you know how I felt about it.
Absolutely, and I understand. I mean,
I just want to give you my perspective on the police department.
And I understand, and I know that there is a lot of us, not just for this department, but for the other
All of
departments,
them, yeah.
that we're going to have to look at. And again, this list that he's given us, you know, it is focusing on what we were talking about with the patrol, that it has the increases for health insurance and workman's comp and property and casualty insurance that may not be realized. And again, your point about the vehicles is very well taken. You know, that is a huge, that's almost $100,000 of the increase that's being requested of $185,000. So those are all things that we still have to sharpen pencils, and we still have to look at this whole list again. So
Thank you.
there's not an increase today, and it's not approved today. There's still a lot of stuff that has to be worked out. But there's no doubt in the information that you brought to us today, and the work and the research that y'all did to show the actual value of our police department. Because with the budget, even with the budget that's being recommended or presented, you're looking at a daily cost per capita of 70 cents.
Well, that's last year's budget,
The
yes,
the
ma'am.
2018, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That doesn't.
19
and again,
doesn't take the account of the increase or the
yeah,
request.
And like the city manager
for
said when we came
185.
in, that the ink on this was still wet when we
Right.
walked in the room with it, so I hadn't had the chance to go through and do that same
Right.
work.
And there's no doubt that there's certainly the safety is a priority for our community, and we know that the police department takes that, every day, and we appreciate the men and women. Not just, I know that it's the patrolmen, but it's the entire department, because it is a team. Whether you call on dispatch, and those, ladies who've been there, some of them have been there quite a lot of years, and,
Yes, ma'am.
and guys as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Depending on when you call, they're answering the calls, and they've been there for a long time. They've stuck through thick and
Yeah.
thin, so.
It is up to us to make sure that the platform that we offer is one that gets you to the calls you need to respond to, and that it's done in a safe manner for the officers, and that we provide for their protection also. And it's incumbent upon us to make sure. So
And-
I
and that-
appreciate you putting all of this on our
I'm
radar.
And real quick, this is it's just a proposal. We haven't approved
ma'am.
everything, and we still have some final numbers, just like all the other budgets, even the library budget. So I think it's a good conversation to have. I appreciate Commissioner Rodriguez, going through some of the things that we look at every year. That we're, the revenues and how to balance it all out for the community. And I think that that's something that we've looked at over and over again. And what makes our town, I believe, special is the fact that we do have our police department. And that the viability, as Commissioner Rodriguez has said, is something that we have to continue to look at.
I met with the chief today and the assistant chief, and I was a little shocked at the requests that were coming through my office. And my first reaction was, "It's not going to fly. I can't do it." And the more I thought about it as the day went on, when you're selling life safety issues, I wanted you to at least hear the needs. Whether we can afford them or not, I understand, but I wanted you guys to hear them today, because to maintain a certain level of service costs money.
Need to be on
And
the radar.
so
And
I know
also-
we can't afford all this. I mean, but I just wanted the board to hear it without me ripping it off the paper.
Sure.
I think
And-
what we have to
No.
be in mind all the time out is something important. It's the waste factor. When is it a waste factor? When can we do better? When can we be more efficient?
Sure.
You know.
We work on that every
Now,
day
that's
in the
kind of
city.
things where we got to work every day on.
Right.
Not being
It's
fat.
our waste filter right there. In the white.
And I appreciate that you guys did a survey to see where we're at currently.
And Sherry did
Yeah,
that.
yeah, thank you, Sherry, for that. Okay, so I know, is there any other quick questions about the budget as presented
Can I
for
just
consideration?
Stress that backup solution again.
Yes, sir.
If nothing else comes from this, I would sleep a lot better at night if we had that solution.
Okay.
But I'm gonna do that in one condition. You pay me back the $1.5 million that they're spending on the police station. I'm just kidding.
We didn't pay that for the record.
It's grant funding.
No, but it's still somebody's paying.
Time we have a major incident, you're going to be glad to have that station and the room in it to be able to set up your briefing room.
Well, and law enforcement, and that, yeah, and just, it probably goes without saying, but there's such a tremendous responsibility being placed on our law enforcement officers today that
No doubt.
that wasn't there several years ago, and
different
daily,
season.
we're asking them men and women to do more and more and more and more and more, and to become more than just police officers anymore. I mean, there's such a remarkable burden that rests upon the shoulders of those young men and women, and some of the decisions they have to make. I don't envy them, it's tough. It really is.
And national average is there's a shortage of police officers. They're having trouble getting these
Well,
guys and
and-
gals to go to the police academy and watch the news. Who would want to?
And the assistant chief and I talked about that today, and they referred to it as the Ferguson effect.
Right.
It's causing law enforcement officers to hesitate, and not make those decisions for fear of the scrutiny that's going to come afterwards. It's causing people to not want to get into the profession. I mean, it's becoming increasingly hard, and it's tough, and I get it, and they're being asked to do so much and to be so much more than just police officers anymore.
These right here have changed the whole industry. Is everything they report to, you're on camera, everything.
That's everything.
Well, school teachers.
Easy to sit at home and
and
complain about what
policemen are
somebody's doing behind the
underpaid.
desk
Thank you.
somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And that's
Yeah,
that's
there's no
just the
doubt
way
about it.
is.
So, and we certainly do appreciate it. So, I know I had an opportunity to speak to teachers today and let them know how, all of us remember, well, I know I do, remember my teachers.
Yes.
And we, how much we appreciate them. And again, it also is our law enforcement officers. There's no doubt
Thank
that
you.
we appreciate them very much. Sherry, I know that we've talked a lot, but is there anything else on this budget that you want us to consider, or anything else you wanted to add?
No, just to remind that we've scheduled another workshop for August the 20th. So we
Okay.
have one August the 6th, immediately following the commission meeting, as well as
August
the
the
20th.
20th?
Yeah, after
After
both
commission meetings.
after both commission meetings, we're going to have budget workshops. But is there anything else with with the budget from tonight, or is there anything else in the police department, or any of the other ones that you wanted to? Nope. Al, is there anything else? Okay, we'll go ahead. Anything else, commission? No. We'll go ahead and adjourn the workshop. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
And I still don't have any news.